So our mind thinks in opposites. The way that we see the world as humans is in duality. We see it in opposites. And everything in our language is based on the knowing of something else. So I am human because I'm not a dog, and I'm not a wall, and I'm not a cat. Our whole language is based on comparison. So you know yourself in comparison to other. So you are you and I am me. I am not you and you are not me. This conversation is a disaster. So you are fat in comparison to a thin person. You are tall in comparison to a short person. You are clever in comparison to a stupid person. Everything that we say and speak about isn't an actuality, isn't a truth. It's language which we've made up, and the way that we've made it up is by describing it against other things. And in a way, most things always have their opposite. Happy, sad, ugly, beauty, up, down, left, right, good, bad. And it's not though the computer has an opposite, but the computer isn't a table. The computer isn't the air. We know this by this is a computer because it's not something else. And this is our world as humans. And we take that as a reality, but it's not a reality at all. It's simply the way that our brains think currently. And we believe that we can find our sense of self in this world. So we believe we can describe ourselves. So if someone was to describe Lisa, I'll use some sentences. So Lisa is tall person. Lisa is a white person. Actually, she's pink, but the terminology is white in our society. Lisa is educated. Lisa has blonde hair. All of this we know by it not being something else. So we know blonde hair because it's not brown hair. Lisa is slim. Lisa has... No, don't be dirty, Lisa. Okay. We're in restraint. Lisa has an incredibly good sense of humour. So we know that by the fact that she doesn't have a bad sense of humour. So we describe all these things about herself. Lisa is 36 years old. Lisa lives in France. Lisa has a dog called Khaleesi. Lisa likes tomatoes. Lisa has a Mac computer. Lisa likes dogs. Lisa grew up in England. We could describe all these things as a person, but this isn't actually who you are. This is something that comes and goes in who you are. And it's not a truth, and it's always moving. Everything we describe about ourselves is always changing. So when I lived in Holland and when I lived in Australia, I was no longer tall. I was short in those countries. It's always in movement. And if I was attacked by a wild dog pack, maybe I wouldn't like dogs so much anymore. And then one moment I'm happy, one moment I'm sad, one moment I'm excited. One moment I'm 20 and then suddenly I'm 36. All of these things are changing constantly. But our mind associates them to be an experiencer. So all of these things added together is an experiencer of life. That is Lisa, and she's in relationship to other people, and she has a life, and she's experiencing life. But actually, there is all of that is appearing and disappearing in something else, in something bigger, in something grander. And there's this energy which claims that to be the experiencer, but that isn't actually the experiencer. That is an experience appearing in life. And so who is it that knows that person? Who is it that knows Lisa likes chocolate? Lisa is 36 years old. All of that appears in the dream. These thoughts appear, but they're not actually an experiencer. They are an experience, and they come and go. When the baby was born, none of these titles existed. So when Lisa was a tiny little baby, none of these titles existed. But what did exist was this essence of being, this aliveness, this awakeness, this knowing of what is. But it wasn't anyone's knowing. It didn't belong to anyone. And when Lisa was a baby, her memory wasn't formed, so she can't remember that. That everything was appearing and belonged to no one. Lisa comes after the fact. Lisa comes after the event. In the beginning, there was this simple awakeness, this aliveness that wasn't bound inside this body. It wasn't the beingness, the aliveness wasn't a baby that was born in Taplow and didn't like to eat very much. That wasn't the experiencer. There was this aliveness, and the baby didn't know who or what it was, but this essence shone through. And it didn't have a sense, oh, I'm a baby and I'm seeing my mother, or I'm a baby with a hand. There was no such thing as hand. There was just awakeness, radical awakeness, innocent awakeness. And that baby, even when it cried and screamed and experienced pain, was not suffering, because there was no baby there. There was no dynamic that was claiming an experience. The baby wasn't going, oh, I am unhappy now because the mother hasn't presented a breast to me in 2 hours. There was no sense of that. There was just awakeness happening. And the mother came and the pain came and that went, and for no one. Then over time, what developed in that baby was a sense of self. A sense that something was inside this body and having an experience. And that sense of self claims things. And the sense of self becomes suffering more and more over time as it claims more things. So at first, young children always say, they don't say, I want chocolate. They go, Lisa wants chocolate. Lisa likes chocolate. Lisa wants to sit on the sofa. And then eventually it becomes I want chocolate. I like chocolate. I am unhappy. I hate this. I love this. I want a dog. And the more and more this I energy comes in, the more it claims things. It claims the body. I am white. I am tall. I am fat. I am right. And it claims it all into this center. I am a good girl. I am scared. I don't like this. And then more and more this illusion grows. And the reason that humans suffer so much is because they base their life on an illusion. They base their life on something which isn't true. That you are having an experience. You do not exist. You is a formation, a pattern appearing in the dream and is not the experiencer. You is an experience. There, job done. Now everybody's awake. Everyone can go home and go, oh yes, I understood Lisa. I understood Lisa. But you can never understand a thing. Understanding appears, you appears, and disappears in this essence, in this awakeness, this consciousness, this aliveness, whatever you want to call it. I'm coming more and more to use the word consciousness because that's the typical way and it makes it easier for me if I use it. But I don't mean conscious of, because there cannot be conscious of. As soon as it's conscious of, that isn't consciousness. That is a separate entity looking at consciousness, claiming consciousness. Because if the whole entire universe is consciousness, then how could there be conscious of? Conscious of. That doesn't work. So right now you're listening to Lisa. There is listening to Lisa. And there is a claiming that you are listening to Lisa. But that's not true. You is a formation appearing in the dream. So imagine now if you put Google glasses on, these Google box glasses that you put on, and you see a virtual reality. So you put them on, you put your phone into them, and you go into a virtual reality. And this virtual reality is looking through the eyes of Khaleesi the dog. So you are looking through the eyes of being Khaleesi the dog. And you believe that after time, the sensations that come back, you can't use Khaleesi the dog as an example because she doesn't have a sense of self. So if we said Brad Pitt, so you put the Google goggles on, and then you begin to believe that you are Brad Pitt. So you are looking through these Google goggles, and these thoughts come up and say, I'm having a very nice day. I really enjoy my day today, and I'm liking it very much. And then you begin to forget that you're actually sitting there with Google goggles on, and you really believe that you're inside and are Brad Pitt. And then finally, after a period of time, a guru goes up to Brad Pitt and says, you're not Brad Pitt. You've got Google goggles on, and you're experiencing Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is an experience. At first, Brad Pitt doesn't know what he's talking about and rejects it. And then after a time, he maybe goes back to the guru, and the guru keeps pointing out, you're not Brad Pitt. You are the one that knows Brad Pitt. And Brad Pitt keeps believing that the guru is speaking to him and thinking that he will wake up. And then one day, for some unknown reason, it clears, and it's seen, but not by Brad Pitt, that you are wearing Google goggles and you're witnessing a virtual reality. You're not you're not actually that person. You're not actually Brad Pitt in the dream. You are the experiencer of the dream. Now, in this world, it's consciousness or life's actual dreams. Everything is it. Everything is the dream. Just like your dream at night, everything is your mind, the production of your mind. This is the production of God's mind. Everything's, everywhere you look is that consciousness, is that awakeness, that aliveness, is total and utter freedom. But when you believe you're Brad Pitt and you're actually a character in the dream, then hearing that that's not who you are feels impossible, because you think, yes, this is who I am. Look, I have hands, I have a face, I can feel my toes. I'm not the computer. But it's not Brad that actually wakes up. Who is it that's knowing Brad, that's experiencing Brad? Brad is an experience, and it's not the person that gets enlightened. It might change the computer program of Brad Pitt after that. He might begin to have dreadlocks and make himself look Indian, because it collapses that sense of self. He just has this strong sense that he should wear beads and look Indian. That's often what happens when people's sense of self drops. They grow their hair long and grey and long beards. They have dreadlocks. They wear rags as clothes. It didn't happen here, but we don't know why. My hair is beginning to go grey, so maybe a few more years and I'll look a bit more like an Indian guru. But that tends to happen to the dream character inside the dream, that they tend to end up looking Indian. We're not sure why they tend to look Indian, but it might be that India is the epicenter of the virtual reality. That might be where the program's coming from or something. It might be just appearing out of the Indian Ocean, like a volcano. And that's where the whole dream comes from. So when people do wake up from the dream, they look Indian. And they chant Indian songs. And they take on Indian names. I'm sorry, I'm milking this joke to death. Okay, so we take some questions.